Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Ernest Hooper. I'm a columnist for the Tampa Bay Times, and it's my pleasure to be the master of ceremonies for today's Friends of the Riverwalk 2017 unveiling of the Monument Trail honorees. We're certainly very excited about unveiling the monuments and celebrating once again what has become a jewel for the city of Tampa. The Riverwalk is not just a corridor that runs along the river. It's a place where we commune with our fellow citizens. It's a place where we come to think and to clear our thoughts. It's a place where we come to enjoy what really has become a linear museum because of the monuments. Before we get going, we also want to recognize some elected officials who are here with us today. If you could hold your applause to the end. We have with us Tampa City Councilman Mike Suarez, Tampa City Councilman Guido Maniscalco, former State Senator Jim Hargret, representing the office of Commissioner Stacy White, David Garcia, here representing Congresswoman Kathy Castor is Dwayne Mallory. We also have Plant City City Commissioner Mike Sparkman, former Hillsborough County Circuit Judge Perry Little, and Delano Stewart, Hillsborough County's first African-American public defender and the founder of the Tampa Organization of Black Affairs. Round of applause for all our dignitaries today. Next, I want to bring up someone who has been instrumental in helping the Riverwalk come to fruition, someone who has been a driving force behind the Friends of the Riverwalk. He founded the association 13 years ago, and it was his idea to add these monuments to the Riverwalk. He's a prominent attorney who has built this practice representing various clients before the governor of Florida, the state legislature, and various city and county municipalities. We are happy today to have him here to help us unveil the monuments. Without further ado, please welcome Steve Anderson. Steve.
Thank you, Ernest, and good morning to everyone. It's so good to see you here. I love this every year. We work all year long for this day, and then when it comes, it's so rewarding, it's so warm for us to see the family members in particular of these honorees and the pride of the families and the emotion. It's just heartwarming to me, and so thank you so much, all of you, for coming. And I want to thank Ernest as well for stepping in and being our MC today. Not only is he going to do a great job, I can tell already he's very comfortable with this, but he's stepping into some formidable shoes from the past. As many of you probably know, Jack Harris has been a volunteer in the Historic Monument Trail from the very beginning, and he has obliged us by being our master of ceremony. So Jack couldn't be here today. He's still very, very much supporting and involved in Friends of the Riverwalk and in this particular project, but Jack sends his regards to all of you and to us for not being able to come. And again, I want to thank Ernest for stepping in. It's a good thing, really good to have someone that knows their way around to be able to do that. And thanks for the public officials, for the elected officials, and the dignitaries who are here today. Anyone who knows anything about Tampa spends 5 minutes with this group of people just milling around and understands that you've got the heartbeat of Tampa here and of Hillsborough County in many regards, the folks that are here and the folks that tend to be involved in this project overall, in the Riverwalk and specifically in the Historic Monument Trail, are people who are leaders and community activists to the max. So you see a lot of folks here. It's good to see. Some of you I don't see except the one day a year when we show up here, but it's always so good so good to see you. But that's because they're so busy leading, contributing, and helping this community. So we're really proud of the civic involvement of this community. This is a special day, and where I normally talk about the significance of these honorees to Tampa, and that's going to be obvious, it will be apparent to you from their bios. But today I want to deviate just a little bit and talk about the significance of this event, this particular unveiling today, because I am very proud to tell you, and I think most of you already know, that we are today unveiling our 30th monument. And that is something that we talked about so many years ago when we started this process. How many honorees would there ever be? And some people said, well, Tampa probably only has 5 people that would qualify. But the truth of the matter is, as you'll hear, there are ample number of people who've contributed so significantly to the development of this community. Our selection committee, the 9-member historian committee, has told me many times they could keep going a long, long time. And the only restraint on that has not been the number of honorees that are available, but the amount of money that I'm able to raise on a day-to-day basis. So the 30th is important. We've reached that goal. It's taken literally 13 years, and we'll talk a little bit about the timing later, but 13 years to get here. And it is, I have no idea how many thousands of volunteer hours have happened in those 13 years. I can only tell you that it's consumed an enormous amount of my time and my family's time and my staff's time, and a lot of people that we'll be mentioning today. But so we're reaching that goal of 30. And so this really marks the end of what I'm going to call phase 1, because I refuse to believe that there won't be further monuments down the road. But this will mark the end of phase 1 of the Historic Monument Trail. This has been dedicated to individuals, as you know, individual people who made such tremendous contributions. But we're hoping that down the road, there may be other people who are so significant, but who haven't reached that 15-year mark that qualifies them for this, that the need will arise to have more unveilings. We also are very hopeful that someday there will be some significant event monuments that join these monuments along the Riverwalk. What we call transformational events, events that were so huge in the history of this community that they changed the direction, not the fabric, but the direction of this community forever. I think most of you know some of those events right off the top of your hand. The introduction of the cigar industry, the introduction of rail to the Port of Tampa, the creation of all the industries that were generated by that, including the phosphate industry and others, citrus industry, the World War II, events of that nature. I hope someday we'll be able to honor those events as they affected Tampa and Hillsborough County. That's another day, though. That's another effort and a lot more money, because those monuments will be extremely expensive when they do occur. We're prepared to raise the money for it, Mr. Mayor, and anyone else who's interested in doing it, but we are prepared to raise that money. We think we will. But I think that the Riverwalk is such, Ernest called it a jewel, and it is a jewel of Tampa. But the Historic Monument Trail and what that trail provides to the residents and the visitors of this community is pretty incredible. When you walk along the trail and you see these 30 monuments, and you see families stopping and reading and talking about the history, and you see people using their QR code reader and reading the history of certain of the individuals. It's pretty incredible. It's pretty incredible. So I do want to recognize And while I'm talking, I will perhaps give you some interesting facts, tidbits about the Historic Monument Trail. Maybe you don't know, and some of them are very interesting. But first I want to introduce and recognize some folks that have been incredibly helpful over the years and are important in and of themselves. Ernest has already introduced you to some of our dignitaries here today. I want to give a special shout out to Troy Manthe. Troy, I don't see you. Troy Manthe is here. I know he's been to every one. He's president of Friends of the Riverwalk, and has been now for 3 years, I think 4. He took over from me and is doing a much better job than I. And Troy is just a phenomenal entrepreneur, a spokesman, and a civic activist. And then along with Troy, members of the board of directors of Friends of the Riverwalk. And we have several of those people here today too. So I would like to especially recognize them and thank them for their continuous effort. Jason Carroll, who's the executive director of Friends of the Riverwalk, is here, and Jason is providing enormous assistance not only to Friends but to me on the Monument Trail. Steve Dickey, you'll meet later, is the sculptor, the artist, who's done all 30 of these monuments, and we are incredibly happy that Steve agreed to do that for us. He's been a great friend and an ally, and a strong arm in getting this done. You can only be proud of the artistic flavor, the accuracy, the quality of his product, and we're very, very proud. I'd like to specially introduce my assistant, Karen Howard. Karen, where are you? She's way over there. Karen is my rock during my law practice, keeps me going there, but more so, she has been my main driving factor here, or force, on the Historic Monument Trail. Karen does not let me miss a beat, and for those of you who've worked with her, you know that she's on it all the time. She's really done a phenomenal job. We could not be here today without Karen's help. Karen, I really appreciate it. Not here, but a person I want to recognize anyway is Chris Castellano, who was my assistant before Karen, and Chris did this for several of our openings or unveilings. Tremendous guy, just gave it all, and I know he's still out there supporting us. I talk to him every once in a while. Mark Noggle of the Stuart Mellon Company. Stuart Mellon Company produces the monuments, the base monuments, and they have all along, but they've really gone above and beyond. Mark does a phenomenal job. He cares about this project. He makes sure that everything is perfect and no problem goes uncured. Really haven't had any problems, but I just want to say Stuart Mellon's done a great job. While I'm on it, let me give you a couple of factoids about the monuments. You can see the bases of them now, but when they're unveiled, you'll see they are solid granite. You'll see some monuments around the country that have a cladding on them of granite or marble or something else, but these are not clad. They are solid granite. They'll last forever, and they're well done. Another little factoid is you'll notice when we unveil the differing heights of the monuments. Of course, sitting on top of the granite pedestal will be the bronze bust that Steve Dickey designs, but the whole monument with the bust and the pedestal are to match the height of the actual recipient. So you'll see some variation in the heights as you go along and look at these 30 along the Riverwalk. There's some dramatic height differences, and not all the tall ones are men. We've had some very, very powerful and tall women to help develop this community over the years, and we're really proud of them. There's some short folks too. You know, there's no doubt they're powerful, and they don't quit ever. The very first one we put up, Vicente Martinez Ebor, not a big person in stature, but you couldn't ask for a bigger person for this community. And the same goes for others. But I want you to all know that when you're looking at them, we've done as good a job as we can to make their height match the height of the real honoree when that person was alive. Another little factoid, unusual, specific to Tampa's Riverwalk, you'll see that on each we have a bronze information plaque that gives the short bio of each of the honorees. You'll also see a QR code emblem on each one. Well, for those of you who are technological and you know the value of being able to read a QR code, please do. We have these on each one of the monuments, QR codes, so use your readers. The QR code will take you back to our website where you can read the extensive bio of each honoree, including the one you happen to be looking at. So that's something that we created here in Tampa, and to our knowledge and to the knowledge of our brass company that makes the plaques. No one else had ever done it before we did. Now I know that it's being used outside like ours are on a number of locations. It makes a lot of sense. You don't have to stand there for an hour and read in the sun when you can, go back to the website with your smartphone. Well, I was in the process of thanking folks, and I've got down to Chris Castellano and Mark Noggle. I want to thank the Beck Group. They've been extremely helpful. The Beck Group is very involved in this community at large, and they've been a member of the Friends of the Riverwalk for a long time. But they have a significant role in these monuments. These monuments will be placed in a hole, an excavated square, a couple of feet deep, and in the bottom of that there'll be concrete with some rebar, some iron rebar, and a plate on which this monument will be placed, and then it will essentially make it a permanent fixture. You can't move these things by your hand, and I hope you don't try. But anyway, the Beck Company does that every year. They go out and they prepare these 6 holes for us, and they've just been a tremendous, tremendous help to us. Very dependable people, and couldn't be happier and so much appreciate. I do want to also recognize and thank Rick Hamilton and the Convention Center. We've had this event here for the last 4 years. This will be the 4th year that we've had it here, and it's been great. Rick and his staff are tremendous. Una Garvey, most of you know, Eric Blanc. We couldn't ask for more here. They opened their doors. They let us use their equipment, let us use their facilities. So I know Rick he's not behind me any longer, but I know you're out there, Rick. Thank you so much. Can't tell you how much we appreciate your constant support and help. Also want to recognize the Tampa History Center. I know that C.J. Roberts, the director, is here, and also Tommy Touchton. I don't know, is Tommy here? I think so. Yeah, there he is. Okay. Well, I want to tell you something. Talk about people that get it done. Tommy Touchton is a former neighbor of mine, so I knew him personally, but he's the kind of guy that makes things happen in this community. And he had so much to do. He was such a driving force, as they say, the irresistible force behind the History Center. Just a tremendous job. And of course, CJ was a great acquisition, doing a phenomenal job. But the first people I talked to when I decided that this was a good idea, after talking to Dick Greco, was Tommy Touchton, C.J. Roberts, and again, nothing but help. We love the idea. We want to help any way we can. You can use some of our people, and we have ever since used Rodney and Manny, and they've been such a help to us throughout. So Tommy and CJ, the help that we received from the beginning from the History Center. You know, the idea was, let's bring history to the Riverwalk, and we think we've done that with these monuments, but it all leads up to your facility. It all leads up to the beautiful center and that what I would call a burgeoning experience at the History Center. Every year it just grows better by leaps and bounds. So I've already told you the Friends of the Riverwalk. This is the Historic Monument Trail is an offshoot, is a committee of the Friends of the Riverwalk. And we created Friends of the Riverwalk as a 501c3 in 2005, and it's been going strong ever since. I've already recognized Troy Manthe and Jason. But Friends of the Riverwalk has done a lot more than just this trail. It has raised over the period of its existence almost $3 million. A great deal of that being contributed to the city as part of the design, planning, and construction process for the Riverwalk itself. So it has been, you know, there are more than 40 businesses that are members of the Friends of the Riverwalk and hundreds of people. It doesn't take a lot, just any contribution. But the other things that the Friends of the Riverwalk are doing, I think all of you are aware of the I'm going to call them the granite steps, or the plaques along, not plaques, they're granite pavers. That's the word I'm looking for, along the Riverwalk. You should all get one. If you don't have it, give a paver. They're $125 or so, and they're forever. And give it to your girlfriend, give it to your wife, give it to your children, or anyone else that's significant in your life. They have become a really outstanding project for the city of Tampa, and a way to remember people who are important to you. So get on the Friends of the Riverwalk website, and you can develop it and order it right there on the website under their paver program. They're also doing the banners. Friends of the Riverwalk also handles the large advertising banners along the Riverwalk. And they put on the annual Riverfest, which is a huge success, and the Halloween trail along the Riverwalk, many other things. The Friends of the Riverwalk is one of those organizations I'm proud to have been a part of and to be a part of, and I encourage all of you to become a part of Friends of the Riverwalk as well. Financial contributions obviously are very important. These things are not cheap. They're made to be permanent, and they're first class. But we've been very fortunate to have raised over $300,000 of private funds towards these monuments. And some of our long-term and continuing financial sponsors are, of course, the families of the honorees. Many of them have assisted financially. Bright House Networks has been there from the very beginning, and they are one of our most significant and continuing. I guess they're Spectrum now, Bright House and Spectrum, both very supportive of Friends of the Riverwalk and of these historic monuments. The Mosaic Company, very significant contributor to us, and the 2012 Republican National Convention Committee that worked to make the convention happen here in Tampa several years ago has been a significant contributor. The Fowler White Law Firm, the Rudin McCloskey Law Firm, and then a host of other people. But of great significance, I do want to recognize and thank the Board of County Commissioners of Hillsborough County, because while we were raising all that money through private donations, the county recognized the Historic Monument Trail as a significant historical preservation project in this community. And their historical preservation grant fund, our grant program, has matched our private dollars almost throughout this project, several $100,000 worth. We really, I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciate Hillsborough County's constant support of this program. Okay, having said all that, of course, the county did a lot. The city built the city doesn't have a lot of money available often. It has done a tremendous job of building the Riverwalk itself, and you know, that's without that we wouldn't be having our historic monument trail. There's a gentleman who has been somewhat involved in that, and to the point that we have to say, without his direct involvement, the Riverwalk wouldn't have been finished, wouldn't exist today. And that's a man that I have a lot of admiration for, and really enjoy what he's doing for the city of Tampa. He has been to each and every one of these and has participated with me in every unveiling we've had, and I hope he continues in whatever unveilings we have in the future. So as a result, it gives me great pleasure, and I'm honored to introduce the mayor of the great city of Tampa, Bob Buckhorn.
I know it's hot, and I will be brief. Let me first of all say happy birthday to Tom Touchton. And to say thank you to Steve Anderson, who, without his effort and without his drive, none of this would have happened. And so, Steve, we are in your debt, and the families that have been recognized, the 30 families, owe you and your committee a great deal of gratitude, and this city owes you a great deal of gratitude. So, Steve, thank you for all that you've done for this. You know, it's great to be here and not have to say Seminole Heights. But I want you all to do something for me over the next couple months. When you see a Tampa police officer, make sure you say thank you. Because for 51 days, the men and women of the Tampa Police Department, along with a lot of our other partners, have been out there 24/7 hunting down a killer. And that killer was brought to justice because of their hard work. They put their families on the back burner, they put their lives on the back burner, and they went out there and did what they do for us every day. So make sure you say thank you to them over the holidays, and I know they would appreciate it. This is an exciting day. And Steve, I want you to know this river is going to be the center of everything we do, not the western edge. So there will be opportunities for 30 more on the west side of the Hillsborough River as well. So we look forward to that river becoming the epicenter of all the development in downtown Tampa, with a trail not as elaborate as this trail, but that will go from Bayshore Boulevard all the way around to that fine dining establishment of Rick's on the river. But to all of you, thank you. This city and this Riverwalk wasn't built in 40 years, although actually it was. It was 6 mayors and 40 years in order to finish this Riverwalk that we enjoy now. And that seems like a long time, except when you look at the 100+ years that this city has taken to come into its own, and the people that were involved in that process, and those that so many years ago contributed to what we've become. What you see today is the culmination of over 100 years of contributions by everyday Tampanians, some of whom we will recognize in these monuments. It was the contributions of Native Americans, African Americans who perhaps didn't come here of their own volition, Hispanic, Italian, Cuban, Anglo, all of whom believed in something bigger than just themselves. They believed in this place called Tampa, and on occasion, that place called Plant City. But, EJ, you're not from Plant City. But they believed in themselves, they believed in each other, and they recognized that together they could build something special. And today we stand on their shoulders. And it is so important that, and I tell my kids this all the time, you know, Daddy may be the mayor now, but I'm standing on the shoulders of thousands of Floridians and thousands of Tampanians who helped give me this gift that we call Tampa. And some of them are being acknowledged today. And the other 23 that we've already acknowledged, but for their contributions, but for their struggle, but for their willingness to give back to this community, we wouldn't be standing here as one of the most exciting places in America. The credit goes to them. And we must always remember who they were and honor their contributions and honor their sacrifice. And remember in difficult times, some more difficult than others, that they stood up, they gave back, they contributed to the greater good. They recognized that it wasn't about them. They chronicled our history. They made our history. They changed this city. And we, as the children and as the descendants and as the beneficiaries of their work, should never forget that and always honor their contributions and the thousands of others who may not be immortalized in marble, but who did just as much. We're writing Tampa's next chapter. These folks wrote our first chapter, and we're in debt to them. So hold on. The best is yet to come. Thanks, everybody.
All right, we're going to bring up Rodney Kite Powell from the Tampa Bay History Center, and he will help us in the unveiling along with Mayor Buckhorn and Steve. You guys ready? Okay, here we go. Rodney Kite Powell.
Thank you all, and good morning. Before I get to the 6 honorees, I do want to mention the members, both past and present, of the Monument Nominating Committee. We have 2 past members, the late Leland Hawes, who I'm sure all of you knew and remember fondly, and Gary Mormino, who was at USF Tampa and St. Petersburg for so long. And then, of course, the current members, Jack Fernandez, Fred Hearns, Andy Hughes, Bob Kirstein, Manny Leto, E.J. Salsinas, and Doris Weatherford. Those are the folks that, that decided the 30 honorees over the course of the last 5 years, and it has been a real pleasure and an honor to be a part of that committee and to really help honor and recognize the history of our community. So with that, let's go ahead and start, and hopefully we're going to do this in the right order. We'll find out. The first honoree is Francisco Scazzari Adamo. So Francisco Adamo, you may know him as Frank Adamo, came from a Sicilian immigrant family who were so poor that he began work in Ybor City cigar factories before he was in his teens. Yet he rose to be an internationally recognized physician and a hero of World War II. He was one of the few doctors to survive the ordeals of Bataan and Corregidor, the war's first battles early in 1942. Taken captive when Corregidor fell, he went on to treat thousands of prisoners of war in the Philippines. And his innovative use of sulfa, a type of antibiotic, saved lives and limbs. He was liberated by American troops in February 1945 and was greeted with a hero's welcome back home. A section of Highway 60 in East Tampa was named for him, and he received significant military decorations, including the Legion of Honor. Dr. Adamo practiced surgery at Centro Storiano Hospital and was elected president of the Hillsborough County Medical Society, and he lived to the age of 95. So Frank Adamo. So next up is Elizabeth Dortch Bernard. Elizabeth Bernard was Tampa's first female postmaster at a time when postal service was important to a fast-growing city during the roaring 1920s. In a time when postal appointments often were political, she earned her way to the top position in Tampa. A widow with children to support, she was undeterred by initial employment discrimination, and earlier than most women or minorities, she understood the relative opportunity for women in the federal civil service. She studied the post office promotion requirements and scored well on objective civil service exams. When she became the postmaster in 1923, she was the highest paid woman in the history of the U.S. Postal Service. Under her 10-year tenure, 16 new postal substations were created in Tampa, and the number of letter carriers here rose from 19 to 113. She proved that women could be top executives and, as a result, was a role model for others. It's Elizabeth Bernard. All right, next up is Ossian Bingley Hart. Ossian Hart was the 10th governor of the state of Florida, but the first to have been born in Florida. Florida always has been a state of newcomers, and his father pioneered near Jacksonville. He became one of Florida's largest slaveholders, yet Hart was a strong advocate for freed blacks during the crucial years after the Civil War. He held several elected positions and practiced law as both a prosecutor and public defender. Although he lived in several Florida cities, his time in Tampa was notable for his defense of a slave called simply Adam. Hart's arguments saved him from execution, and the case was on appeal when Tampa men broke into the jail and lynched Adam. As governor, Hart successfully sponsored civil rights legislation for both women and former slaves. He also worked for a system of public education. His death soon after becoming governor was a tragedy that ended other enlightened reforms. The written records of his wife, Catherine Campbell Hart, provide historians with important details of the era. It's Ossian Hart. Right, next up is Victoriano Montega. Victoriano Montega was the preeminent leader of Tampa's Latin community for much of the 20th century. He founded La Gaceta in 1922, and it remains the nation's only trilingual newspaper. Published weekly, it has pages in Spanish, Italian, and English. Born in Cuba, he became a lector, or reader, in cigar factories soon after his 1930 arrival in Tampa. Cigar makers hired lectors to read to them while they worked, and many Tampa immigrants thus were more familiar with classical literature and international news than most Americans. Montega was one of many lectors, but he became the outstanding advocate for immigrants by founding La Gaceta, less than a decade after arrival and at age 29. Although some termed him a communist at the time of the Cuban Revolution in the early 1960s, respect for him nonetheless was so great that candidates for national office sought his endorsement. He passed the newspaper on to his son, Roland. In its third generation, it is currently owned by grandson Patrick Montega. That's Victoriano Montega. Next is Benjamin Elijah Mays. Born to former slaves in rural South Carolina less than 30 years after slavery ended, Benjamin Mays was a leader of the civil rights movement for African Americans throughout his long life. He and his wife, Sadie Gray Mays, lived in Tampa only a relatively short period of time. But a 1927 study that he did under the aegis of the National Urban League revealed the poverty that Tampa's minorities endured even prior to the Great Depression. The report and the Mays' other challenges to racism eventually resulted in reforms that benefited all Tampans. Benjamin Mays' history also is intertwined with that of Riverwalk honoree Blanche Armwood, demonstrating the national network of early 20th century leaders for African Americans. A serious scholar with specialties in math, psychology, and religion, he earned a doctorate from the prestigious University of Chicago and ultimately held 34 honorary degrees, even though as a child his father did not want him to go to school. That's Benjamin Mays. And the so far 30th honoree, 6th for today, is Stephen M. Sparkman. A member of a pioneer family with roots in eastern Hillsborough County, Stephen Sparkman represented Tampa in the U.S. House from 1895 to 1917. He was the first member of Congress from what then was considered South Florida. His tenure included the 1898 Spanish-American War, which brought tens of thousands of people to Tampa and made it clear that shipping improvements were needed. Troops headed to battle in Cuba had to assemble far south of Tampa at Port Tampa, which was the only harbor deep enough for ocean-going ships at that time. Motivated by this, Congressman Sparkman brought millions of federal dollars that changed the very nature of land and sea in Tampa Bay. Those funds paid for digging deep-water channels from the mouth of Tampa Bay at Egmont Key to downtown, literally right here, the channel that's right behind us, which allowed larger and more modern ships to come closer to the population center and to Ybor City's new cigar factories. The transformation also created new land masses, including Seton Island, which is today's modern Harbor Island. Stephen Sparkman. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you, Rodney, so much. Another round of applause for Rodney Kite Powell. During the ceremony, we had a few more dignitaries join us, including Hillsborough County Commissioner Victor Chris, who is here, Judge Herb Berkowitz, and I believe Judge E.J. Salsinis is here also. Again, we want to recognize the Friends of the Riverwalk for bringing this project to fruition. Members of the media can pick up thumb drives from Karen Howard, who's standing right back there, and she also has maps showing where the newest monuments will be located, as well as the other 24 monuments. We want to invite the media and guests and families and friends of honorees to remain after the ceremony, take pictures, and inspect the monuments close up. Artist Steve Dickey will also be available to answer questions. So again, we want to thank you for coming out to celebrate the Riverwalk. It is the jewel of the city, and it's the first place we want to tell visitors about. It's the first place where we come to gather together, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.